This is Coral, and you're listening to The Forward Thinker Show. Today, we are joined by the Colin Rocker. He is known across LinkedIn, Instagram, and TikTok as the first gen professional. He also graduated from the University of Georgia in management information systems and data analytics. He's a content creator, and he's also worked as a consultant, senior manager. The list is too long for me to say in like a minute, so I'm just gonna pass it off onto Colin. Colin, how are you?
I'm feeling good this morning. You know, I've got my tea right here. Woke the baby up a couple hours ago. The mom's taking them on a little walk around the neighborhood, so leaving me with just enough time to have an amazing conversation.
Of course, he is a busy man, but thanks again for being here today, Colin. You know, one of the first questions that I ask all of my guests is, where are you from?
So I was originally born in Atlanta and grew up in the suburbs around Atlanta. You know, big. Unfortunately, I guess I have to be a Falcons fan, but fortunately, I'm also a big UGA Bulldogs fan. And so when I had the opportunity coming out of high school to attend UGA, I was super pumped about it. Actually got off the wait list to UGA and started at like a local college. And so I definitely had a unique path to getting into my, 4-year bachelor program, but had an amazing time in Athens, Georgia, made like some lifelong friends there that, I've been able to thankfully continue a lot of those relationships when I moved to New York City right out of college. And so I've been in New York for the last 7 years. And every time I ask somebody, the amount of time it takes to become a real New Yorker kind of extends by 1 year. So right now it's 8 years. And I'm sure once I get to 8, they'll say, oh, no, it's actually 10 years. Still waiting to get my official New Yorker badge in the mail. But yeah, I've been in New York since about 2018.
That's awesome, Colin. Being, like you said, first gen professional, what does that mean exactly? Could you explain that a little bit?
Yes. And I love that you're asking this question because I feel like every time I talk about this, sometimes the definition, can be brought up to interpretation. But I personally define the phrase first gen professional as someone being the first in their family, probably in most cases, the first in their immediate family. So think about, your siblings, your brothers and sisters, your parents, maybe close uncles, aunts, and cousins, to enter into the corporate realm. So, otherwise called white collar work, otherwise called knowledge work. I don't really like that phrase, but basically if you're the first person in your family to be an accountant or work on Wall Street or be in consulting, right? That's how I really define that term. And, I've sort of carved a niche out of serving that audience because there's so many unique challenges coming from a blue collar, economically disadvantaged background, or just, maybe not even economically disadvantaged, but just culturally coming from outside of that mindset. You've got to just being aware of how these environments can be different from people coming from different parts of the country. So yeah, that's how I define being a first-gen professional.
It really is. And I know you've helped a lot of like students get into that realm, because I'll be honest with you, I'm in tech specifically, like it's very like it's one of those fields that is like when you're in, you not only do you have to have the technical skills, but you also have to have the people skills, bureaucratic skills, and a lot of other skills that I didn't know that I had to come into the table with. And I was like, this is crazy. And sometimes it's a lot to handle.
Totally. I can really relate to that. My dad was a plumber. And so every year he had his own plumbing business. And obviously as an entrepreneur and as a business owner, there were other soft skills he had to master, but around on average, the more sufficient and skilled he got as a plumber, the more money he made and the bigger contracts he could bid on, right? Whereas in a white collar field, at some point, the success of you at work and how good you do at your job will at some point, like it was for me, have nothing to do with your individual performance, but now it's about how well can you bring out the best in others, right? How are you as a leader? How can you persuade people to work towards a common goal, right? And so making that shift in terms of how you approach your work and how you, approach the people you work with is so huge.
I wonder that first time you had to enter the business world, how was that experience for you?
It was rough. It was an education. I won't mince words there. I think I was really, really lucky because I had a really good first manager who sort of showed me the ropes. And so my first job out of school was in consulting. And so, for those who aren't familiar with this industry, I mean, you are 4 to 5 days of the week, you're sitting in the client's office trying to help them work through whatever you've been hired on to do. And so how you show up to work, the optics of, how you speak in meetings, how you deliver deliverables back to the client. I mean, all of that is so important. Perception and visibility is so important. And so I had to get a real education. I mean, I remember my very first week working in consulting, I booked like the cheapest room at the cheapest hotel that was like right across the street from the client side. It was actually a smoker's room. And so I show up my first day as a consultant in like a thrifted suit with like a tie I was borrowing from someone, literally smelling like cigarette smoke. And my manager's like, what are you doing? You don't understand what's going on here. Yeah. And I remember actually, oh my God. Yeah. I think his girlfriend at the time had like this is so embarrassing. She had like an employee discount at like Men's Warehouse or Target or something. And so I literally went like that next weekend and like upgraded my wardrobe. I got my corporate card so I could book like the nice hotel where all the other consultants were staying at. All these intangible things were like, did that affect my ability to do my job day in and day out? No, it didn't. But like culturally, if you don't know these things, you may make, the same decisions, right? And so I was lucky that I had that really good first manager that sort of, took me under and said, this is what to do, this is what not to do. But if you don't have that manager, I mean, that's, I guess, in essence, that's what I'm trying to do on social media.
That is such a great point. Having some sort of leader to guide you in your career. Colin, my listeners, there are also people who want to become entrepreneurs in the tech space. But I think entrepreneurship in general, there's a lot you can learn even from people who aren't in tech.
That's right.
And I wanted to ask you, like, how has your experience, like being a consultant, helped you run your own business?
That's a great question, Coral. And then, for context, I very recently, and I'm blessed to say that I've been able to step into full-time entrepreneurship, which is incredible through the platform I built online and on social media. But it was a path to getting there. Certainly, the one thing that you learn time and time again in consulting is how to position yourself as a professional and how to communicate, right? I mean, there are days where the output of the day, my job for that entire 8 to 10 hour working day was to write one email because of how important that email was going to be in terms of like winning more business or communicating a very hard, sensitive, nuanced problem to a wide group of stakeholders. And so honestly, like the corporate communication masterclass I got has definitely been really helpful in terms of now how I talk to brands to negotiate deals, how I write scripts for my own videos that I, put out on social media, knowing how to communicate as a professional in a way that's still, I like to add in, some little things people know that I'm still a human at the end of the day, but that's probably the biggest skill. And then every consultant has to get really good at just like mental models and frameworks and explaining what can be sometimes very complicated topics in a very sort of structured way, right? Maybe using like a metaphor or maybe using a certain graphic or mental model on a slide. And so that's definitely helped me set up certain parts of the business as well.
Sometimes like people forget that like, yes, it's just an email. There's a lot of like simple things, PowerPoint decks or emails or Excel sheets. And you think, oh, it's just that. But like in a business, there's like probably like multi-million-dollar contracts behind it. So you have to be very careful, because if you mess up, you can lose actual money.
You can lose actual money, or you can lose face. I mean, everyone who's at work now, right? You're communicating with people every single day, whether that's on like, Microsoft Teams or Slack or whatever, like chat platform you use. I mean, certainly I've gotten like certain messages from like interns and first years where I'm like, wow, you need to follow me on Instagram. Like this needs to be improved, like, there's a way you show up to work, even in how you communicate one-on-one. And to your point, if you're, sending that email out that literally like millions of dollars are on the line, like you got to make sure you're coming like correct and proper. So,
yes, 100%. And it translates so well with entrepreneurship. Part of entrepreneurship is convincing people that the problem that you're trying to solve is worth it. And you're trying to convince people to either buy your product or stakeholders, right? People who actually invest in you. You have to know how to go around that and not just be very unprofessional, but just informal. Yes. Right. And I think with you being a consultant, you've probably met all ranges of types of people. So you probably know how to talk to every single one, which is pretty cool.
So actually, I'll challenge you on that and I'll flip that a little bit, because I think, yes, in consulting, you interact with people at very high levels at an organization, which I think is really helpful. But to be honest, I love the amount of range I've been able to experience in my life, because again, to go back to my dad, I mean, I was obviously raised in a very blue collar family. And so I was, during my summers when I was like a kid, right, we weren't going on vacation. I would just wake up at 6 a.m. and I go to work with my dad. And so I'd see him in one day. We'd be in the south side of Atlanta talking to a single mother whose water heater had busted and she couldn't afford to pay my dad, but it was a referral that was like word of mouth. And so he was just going to do it on the house. And then we'd go up that same day to Midtown and I'd see him try to negotiate, a very large contract with like this commercial real estate developer to do the plumbing and like the thing that they're fixing up or building. And so I think if I actually think about the experiences that I think have allowed me to communicate up, down, and across, I think being able to see that range and how you deal with certain types of people and how you, pay respect to people, how you approach them on a human level, how you talk to them and understand where they're coming from. Interpersonal communication it's my secret weapon, honestly. Like I would ascribe all of my success in my business and in my professional life to how I've been able to communicate back and forth with people.
I love that. I noticed that you said that like your dad, he was one of the people that helped you become the person that you are today. I know that you are now a brand new dad that's been taking up some time. And I wonder, now that you are the dad in question,
right?
How has that changed your perspective when you were a child seeing your dad work and have a business to now you are the dad who works and has a business?
I'll be honest with you, Coral. That's a question no one's ever asked me. So you're about to get a very raw and truthful answer. So I hope you're ready for that.
No, we need the true answer.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, if I'm being honest and I'm being as truthful as I can be, I mean, my relationship with my dad was at times quite complicated. I think the energy and time and part of his life that he put towards his business and other parts of his life sometimes took away from what I would imagine his obligation should have been as a father in terms of what you do in the household, and even honestly as a husband in terms of how him and my mother interacted while they were still married. But there are certainly takeaways, and I give him a lot of credit in terms of like how I learned how to communicate. And he was a very charismatic guy. And so there's certainly parts of him that I see in myself. But in terms of how that's changed my approach, to fatherhood, I think it's been, let me just say that I'm very early in the process, right? So I got, a little newborn baby, but I think the experience now has honestly been very physical, and so like, you're not really like teaching a child just yet. You're just making sure that like, he doesn't roll over, you're changing diapers, you're putting his clothes on. And so he's alive, right? Like you're on watch basically constantly. And so I think the big thing that I've sort of been trying to figure out is, how do I honestly make sure I have time for everything? Because I feel like in these last couple of weeks, I've definitely gotten a lot more reactive and like responsive to whatever he needs, right? So I'm working up until the baby needs something, or I'm spending time with my wife up until the baby needs something, or I'm working out and, taking time for myself and having leisure time until the baby needs something. And so I guess like that's probably honestly just going to be the mode of my life until like he gets a bit more mature and like self-sufficient and we teach him a couple of those basic things. I will say I'm definitely going into this experience, as I think everyone does, with the perspective of how can I take the best of what my mom and dad's perspective on parenting was, but also change and alter, certain things to make it better. I think the biggest way for me now, again, just getting straight to it. One thing I want Isaiah, my son, to know is like how much I love his mother, right? My wife. That's something that like didn't necessarily observe a lot in my own household, which caused, its own, demons and troubles in terms of how I navigated my own romantic love and dating life. But like, that's something where like, that's been a big thing for me, is making sure that like when he is able to like really observe and ingest those experiences, that he sees that like we are a family, it's not dad and him or mom and him. It's like, it's the three of us. And one last thing I'll say on that is, Brene Brown, who's a big author, and she's done a couple TED Talks. She has this quote that's saying that like there are children-focused families, there are parent-focused families, and there are like family-focused families. And I would say the big goal of us now is to make sure we are at all times a family-focused family, which means sometimes, if I want to do this big speaking event, but it puts, the rest of the family at a disadvantage, I may not be able to do that. Or if, Isaiah one day wants to do 18 extracurriculars, but the family only has time to manage and pay for 3 or 4 of those, like that has to be a conversation. And so I think like that's another thing. I just want to make sure that, those sorts of things are in balance. And like Isaiah can clearly observe the love that his two parents have for each other.
So what would you say somebody like you who's, I wouldn't say hustle bro, but someone who's really involved in like their career, they're pursuing their own business and they're about to become a parent.
Yeah.
What is something that you feel like could help prepare them for that?
Oh man.
Or what's something that's helped you?
Yeah. God, you're asking very good questions that I have not thought about at all. But yeah, we're getting to it. I mean, first and foremost, like you need a support system. Like definitely, like you need a board of advisors, you know, however you want to call it, a kitchen cabinet, whatever phrases people use.
Mm-hmm.
It must and should consist of your partner, but it cannot end there. And I'm lucky enough to where I've got a really good relationship with my mother as well as my mother-in-law. I've got really good relationships with guys that I went to college with that are in certain phases of their lives that I can talk to. And so I think the biggest and most immediate piece of advice is you need people around you, because you're not as smart as you think you are, and you won't be able to solve everything or, you know, rationalize or deal with everything that's going to happen just between you and your partner. And so that's like the first big piece of advice. And the second thing I would say leading up to it is like the experience of the actual like delivery and the birth is like take some time to reflect and appreciate and just be grateful for the life that you have. Like I think a lot of times, and I definitely felt myself on this, but like you get pulled by the inertia. Like as you say, like New York is a very fast-paced place, right? And a lot of people here are focused on their careers and focused on their businesses, and that's not inherently bad. But if you're aware of, you know, the next 9 months, you know, and after that, you're going to have this very radically changing experience in terms of like raising a kid, you need to take time to sort of take stock and just be grateful of where you are and really do a bit of idealized long-term planning in terms of how you want to approach it. I don't know what our approach is, but I know that I want to have an approach, you know what I mean? And I think a lot of people just sort of get tossed into parenthood or even tossed into marriage, and they don't have, you know, they didn't take that time to sort of prepare it. They just want to, you know, sort of white knuckle it and deal with it as it comes. And I don't think that always results in the best results. So two quick things. I will say this is a rapidly evolving model. So if we have another conversation here, you know, in 2 weeks, that probably changed all this.
I love how you're saying a rapidly evolving model and you're talking about parenthood.
Yeah. It's the consultant in me, you know?
So consultant, yeah. It's giving Big Four. No, I love that. I think when it comes to entrepreneurship, it's very scary. It's not something that, like, from what I've heard from other people, it's not something that you can just do alone, right?
No.
Like it's something that you can build upon, but you also have to be a leader in some way, and you also have to, like you said, have a support system, because I don't think that you're the only person running your YouTube channel, your LinkedIn, your TikTok, you're running everything. I thought it's not a one-man show. You can't have a one-man show and have everything.
No, I think, you know, there's that great quote that I'm going to butcher, but basically it's like, if you want to go far, you can't go at it alone. Right. And so I think for me, it's like bringing on, you'd be surprised actually, the creative output in terms of all the content that I make is certainly just me, but that's because I brought on a team around me to handle a lot of the mechanical aspects that you really just need to make sure in really good, like, working order. Like I brought on an accountant, I have a manager, I have someone that reviews all my contracts and the deals and the brand partnerships I do. I've had like marketing consultants come on the past to help me like create some of the digital products and offerings I've offered to my audience. It's really about figuring out what I am the best at, which again, I've sort of come to this conclusion that, like, in terms of telling stories, resonating with an audience, you know, filming, editing, like I like to own all of those things. But all of these surrounding activities in terms of the logistics, the business development, the accounting, the finances, right? Like I obviously clearly have visibility and final say on a lot of that stuff, but the day-to-day management of a lot of those activities has been handled and offshored to others. And it's been a multiplication factor like you wouldn't believe on the business, right? I mean, people always say you got to do everything yourself and don't give up control. But it's like, again, I think you can really, really, if you find the right people and the right partners, it can 10x what you're able to do in your business for sure.
100%. That will help you with that balance that you're looking for.
Absolutely.
As a new entrepreneur, as a new parent, as like, even if it's not parenthood, but maybe there's something else going on in your life, maybe you're a student, it's really important to, number one, like you said, not do things alone, have a great support system, and also you have to like be a leader in somehow and like help those people get motivated so that they can do what they have to do so that the whole business can go forward.
That's right. And I mean,
Yeah.
people may feel a certain way about this, but I think in some ways a business is kind of like a baby. They take
Yeah, it is.
a lot of time, they take a lot of money, and sometimes they shit on you, so it's very similar. Yeah.
I think that's like the perfect way to end off this conversation. I will say though, I love how you have like boundaries in terms of things. I love how you say like I can only have time for this and that, having boundaries with your time and so that people can be respectful of your time. I love that about you. I think that's also important, having boundaries with people and like having prioritizing certain things so that you're not spread too thin.
And the last thing I'll say on that is, if you don't take the time when you feel you don't need it, your body will take the time from you at the worst possible time. And so I think the other part of this, especially when it comes to self-employment and entrepreneurship, is put the time in your schedule to take a step back temporarily, to recenter, to recuperate, to rest, because like, especially, I mean, look, I'm approaching 30, like these bones are, getting
You're
rickety.
30?
I'm approaching 30. I'm 28. I mean,
thought you were
that's
like 24 or
wow.
like 23.
Okay. Wow. Okay. I have to say I'm still processing your reaction to that information. Like that's okay. All right. I didn't say I was 30. I said I was rapidly approaching 30. These are different things, Coral. I'm not quite dead yet. I haven't turned to dust just yet. But I could even see at my current age, right? Like I've got to put this time on my schedule because, I've had certain moments at work that have taken me out for like a week because I had to go to the hospital. I'm, deficient in iron. I'm low in electrolytes, like all these things where it's like, I mean, approach your career like an athlete would, right? I mean, the Olympics happen once every 4 years, right? These championships happen once every year. It's like, build in the time in your schedule. Like you need an off season, you need time to recuperate and sort of rest up for the next sprint, for the next game, for the next championship. So yeah, have that approach as well, or else, like you said, you'll burn out, and it won't be pretty.
You won't be pretty. You have to tell me your skincare routine after this because you're like you look so young.
I appreciate that.
Anyways, thank you so much, Colin. I think that a lot of the things that you said are going to resonate with my audience, especially those who want to become entrepreneurs, want to understand that balance that you just talked about. I am now going to give you the option for you to promote anything that you'd like and how people can reach you if they have any questions.
Okay, sure. Look, I mean, thank you for the opportunity. I've got nothing, specific to promote, but I'll just say that you are capable of so much more than the people around you see, and never let your environment or your current position, wherever you may be working or whatever your job title is, to consume too much of your identity, because at the end of the day, you have no control over that and it can be taken from you at any time. So the one thing I will promote is know who you are and know the value you bring to the table, because you won't get that from any corporation or organization. It comes from within. And if you want to hear more about me and my story and just, follow the journey that is my life, you can find me at Career Colin on all platforms.
All platforms, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube. Thanks again, Colin.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Forward Thinker Show podcast. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.